Fall of Broceliande. There was a crunch, followed by a gurgle. Ardha took a deep breath and peered around the side of the tree, ready to fight but also ready to keep running, at least until he found some more Navarre. The creature lay in a pile in a pool of rapidly spreading blood. A heavily armoured figure stood with one boot on the thing's chest, straining to pull a great two-handed spear out of its armoured throat. As Ardha moved cautiously forward, the figure's head snapped round towards him, and it half drew one of its vicious-looking javelins from its quiver. Registering that Ardha was a human and not another Ettercap, the figure visibly relaxed a little, but was still wary. Ardha did not blame them, whoever they were. Painful as it was to admit it, there were people who looked like Navarre working with the Vallorn spawn in Broceliande. It near broke Ardha's heart to think of it. With a free hand, the armoured figure lifted the visor on their helmet. It was a young woman. She favoured Ardha with a disturbingly broad smile. "Hello," she said cheerily. Her good humour was obvious and incongruous given their situation. "I thought it was hunting someone." With an unpleasant squelch, the spear came free of the Ettercap. It twitched and jerked a little in its death throes. She examined the head of her spear carefully, it was wickedly sharp, and then thrust it into the chest and then the abdomen of the Ettercap for good measure. "My name's Leah," she said as she knelt down next to the creature, laying her spear carefully on the ground. "I'm down from Rue-Castle with some friends." With a smooth move, she drew a wicked-looking heavy-bladed short sword from her belt and proceeded to chop one of the Ettercap's claws off. She appeared to be focused on the task, but Ardha got the distinct impression that any sudden moves would be met with violence. Once the claw was free, she examined it for a moment, then popped it into a dripping sack at her belt. She stood up, reclaiming her spear. "I'm a bit lost, if I'm honest," she said. "I got a bit turned around during the fight this morning. I don't suppose you've seen half a dozen knights anywhere nearby?" Ardha hadn't, and said as much. "Shame," said Leah. She didn't seem all that worried. "Still, we agreed that if we got separated, we'd regroup back at Greenstead." She looked around the clearing thoughtfully for a few moments. "Next question. I don't suppose you know which way Greenstead is, do you?" Ardha couldn't think of anything to say in the face of such relentless unpreparedness, and simply nodded. "Excellent!" The Dornish woman favoured him with another radiant smile. "Then when we've tracked down the rest of the pack and dealt with them, you can guide me back there. Come on, these creatures won't butcher themselves, and my sack's not even half full." Overview. For the past year, a tempest has raged in Broceliande as the Vallorn strove to pour its filth into Borsdell and Illyriel. After the summer solstice, the strength of the Vallorn reached its peak. The people of Broceliande weathered it with the aid of many allies. Now, it seems, the tide is receding. A respite, an opportunity to prepare, and perhaps a chance to claim a little more of the world from the green grasp of the Vallorn. It is, of course, only one territory. There are other things going on in the Navarre nation that also need to be considered. But for now, let us focus our attention on Broceliande. Moment to strike. An opportunity exists to try and clear the Vallorn from dark ranging in Broceliande. The Vallorn will have recovered its strength by the start of Autumn Equinox 384 YE. Clearing the Vallorn from dark ranging will require the commitment of one or more armies. As with the Liathhaven Vallorn before it, the Broceliande Vallorn is weakened. Its recent attempt at expansion has been completely stymied. Its strength is as much depleted, and the winter magic that now smothers the territory makes it more difficult for it to replenish that vitality. The Broceliande Vallorn is much more powerful than the Liathhaven Vallorn, however. It dominates significantly more of the territory for a start, and even with the withering curse, the window of opportunity to strike against Broceliande is not wide. The Vates of Broceliande have identified that there is a chance to drive the Vallorn infestation out of dark ranging. There are strategic advantages to doing so, not least that claiming the region would allow armies to pass from Rykos to Semerholm and vice versa, or from Rykos into the Barrens. It would also allow the people of Illyriel and Borsdell to support each other more effectively, and bring closer the day when enough of Broceliande is reclaimed that it can finally become an imperial territory. The Vallorn is a thing of limitless fecundity, and the window of opportunity to strike against it is already closing. By the start of the Autumn Equinox 384 YE, the energies of the Vallorn will once again be strong enough to resist attempts to clear them with martial force. The Vallorn of Broceliande is significantly more dangerous and powerful than the Vallorn of Liathhaven, but the situation is slightly less complicated than position in the west due to the absence of any other significant force in the territory. The Empire also has solid control of both Borsdell and Illyriel, meaning they will not need to establish or maintain a beachhead. While the Vallorn prevents armies moving freely between Rykos and Semerholm, this will not impede armies moving in to attack the region from the north or the south. Furthermore, Imperial heroes fought hard to keep the Broch deep in the Vallorn from being overrun, and the hard-bitten Navarre who live in the steading may be able to offer additional support. Even so, claiming dark ranging from the Vallorn will require significant effort, and the Imperial forces would need to claim the entire region before the Vallorn regains its strength. If even a tenth of the region is still controlled by the Valorn when this happens, it will be impossible to prevent it reclaiming the entire region. Clearing Dark Ranging. Imperial armies could attempt to free the region of Dark Ranging from the Valorn. Armies and military units alike would be fighting in the Valorn miasma, with all the problems that entails. To claim Dark Ranging will require the Empire to overcome the effective strength of the Valorn and generate sufficient victory points to claim the entire region. Determining how much resistance the Empire would face will require the use of magical scrying. Eyes of the Sun and Moon should be sufficient to estimate the effective strength of the Valorn in Dark Ranging. The simplest way to reclaim the region would be to bring to bear sufficient force to overcome the Valorn and generate a total of 10 victory points over one or more seasons, but that is no trivial matter. It is not possible for military units alone to achieve this task. Reclaiming a region of Broceliande from the Valorn is a matter for Imperial armies. The general of any army that moves to Broceliande will need to take an attacking order and make clear they are seeking to clear Dark Ranging. It does not matter which direction the army approaches from. Armies coming into Dark Ranging from the north, south or east will all combine their strength to clear the region. The fighting will be taking place in a region infused with the Valorn miasma. As a consequence, any casualties suffered by the army will be doubled. There is a ritual in Imperial law that might help mitigate the effects of the miasma, why Suleiman walked away from the baker, but even that powerful enchantment cannot entirely remove the sting of the Valorn's choking atmosphere. Numbers of casualties could be mitigated by army orders as normal, but many orders that reduce casualties also reduce the effectiveness of the army at conquering land. Furthermore, any military unit that is assigned to assist the battle in Broceliande likewise risks suffering serious casualties. All military units assigned to the campaign will suffer a reduction of 40 to their effective fighting strength for the next 6 months, representing soldiers lost or crippled in the Valorn miasma. This 2-rank penalty will be applied to the character rather than the resource. Paying to change personal resource to a different resource will not clear this penalty. In the event that a character uses a ritual such as Conclave of Trees and Shadow to turn different personal resource into a military unit, the penalty will still apply and will persist when the resource turns back. The essence of the resource has been depleted by the damage caused from fighting in the Valorn miasma. Strategic summary. Dark Ranging could be cleared of Valorn influence, but the entire region must be claimed by the Empire before the window of opportunity closes. This will require a successful military campaign using Imperial armies. Dark Ranging is infused with the Valorn miasma, meaning any casualties suffered in this campaign would be doubled, but orders and magic might be used to mitigate these losses. Any character that assigns a military unit to support an army fighting in Dark Ranging will likewise suffer. They will incur a 2-rank penalty to the effective rank of any resource they own for the next 6 months. This penalty will be applied to the character, not to the resource. Changing to a different resource will not mitigate the effect. If another resource is transformed into a military unit and assigned to support an army in Dark Ranging, the penalty will persist when the resource turns back into its normal state. The Banners of Rucastle. Until the start of the winter solstice, the additional rewards available to Dornish military units apply also to any military action in Broceliande. During the winter solstice, the adventurous troubadour and veteran of numerous glorious adventures in the Navarre forests, Noel de Boisvert, spoke passionately about the glory to be won facing the twisted beasts of the Valorn and proposed a mandate. René de Rondel took up the banner and urged the knights-errant and the questing knights of Dawn to come to Broceliande to help the Navarre protect their homes. The immediate threat is now over, but there is still glory to be gained in Dark Ranging. The name alone is not enough to give a glory seeker goosebumps. The effect of the mandate René de Rondel enacted will continue until the start of the winter solstice, meaning that any Dornish military unit that supports an Imperial army in Broceliande, even if that army is not actively attacking the Valorn, will be presumed to be seeking adventure in the depths of the Greenwood. As such, they will continue to receive rewards from the nobles of Rucastle in particular, and Semaholm as a whole. The reward will be 4 random ingots, either Tempest Jade, Welt Silver, Orichalcum, or Green Iron. The Blade of the Pilgrims. Until the start of the winter solstice, highborn congregations continue to support the Navarre in Broceliande. The highborn National Assembly could enact a mandate to call them home early. Also during the winter of last year, the priests of Highguard took up the sword to fight the greatest spiritual threat to the Empire. Not only did adventurous pilgrims travel to Broceliande to directly fight the Valorn spawn and protect Illyriel and Boar's Dell, but less martially inclined congregations contributed valuable supplies to the beleaguered steadings. With the immediate threat of the Broceliande Valorn dealt with, there is now a question of whether the Imperial forces will continue to press into Dark Ranging or will withdraw to regroup and consider the next action. If the Highborn National Assembly does nothing, then the congregations of Highguard will continue to experience the loss of 2 votes in the Synod and 1 dose of Liao until the start of the winter solstice. If an Imperial army attacks the Valorn in Broceliande after the autumn equinox, however, it will receive assistance from highborn pilgrims equivalent to 20 strength for every congregation so affected. Judging by the support provided during the summer solstice, this would represent about 1,400 additional strength. If no Imperial army attacks the Valorn this season, then the congregants and pilgrims will focus on helping the people of the steadings recover from their losses over the last year, offering compassionate aid and support to help them rebuild. Alternatively, the Highborn may wish to end their support for Broceliande prematurely, perhaps to focus their attention elsewhere or because they do not believe the Empire is ready to take on the Broceliande Valorn again. There are even some Highborn pilgrims who question the wisdom of continuing to assist the Navarre following the appearance of their new Druge allies during the final months of the recent defensive action and their continued involvement with an utterly untrustworthy Eternal. The Valorn of Broceliande remains a threat, but the wise do not rush into danger when there is time to consider. We send named priest to call the pilgrims in Broceliande home to Highguard to prepare for the next stage of the war against the Valorn. Synod Mandate Highguard National Assembly. This mandate brings the pilgrims working in Broceliande home a season early, ending the penalty to Highborn congregations shortly after the autumn equinox. While it requires no Liao to enact, it still requires a greater majority to be effective due to the interference of the Wisdom Assembly and the Sword Scholars. On the other hand, if priests of Highguard wish to continue their commitment to the battle against the Valorn in Broceliande, they may wish to prepare new statements of principle to urge the people of the nation to focus their attention on that undertaking. The Spears of the Pines. The warriors and hunters of the Great Forest Orcs have returned to Thurunin. The warriors and hunters of the Great Forest Orcs are disgusted when they hear that the Navarre have been aided by the hated Druge. Once they have completed their obligation to defend Broceliande, they quickly depart and return to their homes in Thurunin. While it may be possible to address their concerns, and potentially call on the Spears of the Pines to help in freeing Dark Ranging from the Valorn, it will most likely require additional diplomacy before Chief Valak accedes to such a request. The Bound King. Until the start of the winter solstice, herb gardens and forests in Miaran, Hercynia, and Thurunin continue to suffer the loss of 2 random herbs or 2 measures as appropriate. Tharim continues to provide aid to any army in Broceliande equivalent to 1,000 force. The Imperial Conclave may secure additional assistance from Tharim for an extended period. The barons and servants of Tharim continue to support the Navarre in Broceliande, even as the Eternal continues to feast on the herb gardens and forests of Miaran, Thurunin, and Hercynia. The arrangements with the Imperial Conclave expires at the start of the winter solstice, but if Imperial forces engage the Valorn during the autumn equinox, Tharim's servants will support them, providing an additional 1,000 points of effective strength to any attempt to claim Broceliande. Tharim is magnanimous with his favours. The offer he made in summer still applies. If the Conclave passes a declaration of concord giving him permission to extend his feeding to the herb gardens and forests of Highguard, the Brass Coast, the League, and Wintermark, he will be able to increase the number of barons, dust witches, and bound guardians he sends to Broceliande, sufficient to add a total of 3,000 force to any military campaign there. Every herb garden in those nations will suffer a loss of 2 random herbs, and each forest will lose 2 resources over the coming season. Both the additional aid and the damage to herb gardens and forests will end at the start of the winter solstice 384 YE. After this point, the Conclave will need to negotiate a new arrangement with Tharim if they wish his aid to continue. A time to prepare. While much of the attention of the Empire is focused on the opportunity to strike into Dark Ranging, there are other opportunities available in the wake of the Imperial victory in Broceliande. There is the matter of the Broch to consider, and proposals made by those who have fought beside the Navarre over the last year, the Dornish Knights of Rucastle to the north, and the warriors and physics of the Highborn and the Great Forest Orcs from the south. The defence of the Broch. The Imperial Senate could provide additional support to the Broch, securing its position within the Valorn miasma. The proposal requires 40 wains of weirwood, 80 crowns of labour, and takes 3 months to complete. Once complete, it would spread a bounty of blade root amongst almost every personal resource in Broceliande and provide benefits similar to a spy network. One key location threatened by the Valorn was the steading of the Broch that actually lies deep within the Valorn miasma itself. The Broch's precarious position made it vulnerable to attack, and without the efforts of the Empire and the emissaries of Tharim, it might have been the first to fall to the Valorn's malice. As it is, the steading has been damaged and left isolated in the heart of the Valorn. The Navarre who live there are reaching out to the Imperial Senates for support, and in preparation of the coming war to remove the Valorn from Dark Ranging. They are overstretched. Even before the surge of Valorn activity and the Withering Curse, it was a challenge to maintain the Broch so deep within the Broceliande Valorn. They request aid in the form of Senate support, and the materials they need to make their steading secure, a sanctuary for the Navarre who dare to live within the depths of Broceliande. They estimate that 40 wains of weirwood and 80 crowns of labour costs would be sufficient to significantly reinforce the Broch. This would have an immediate positive effect for every Navarre steading in Broceliande. In addition to added security, it would split a bounty of 75 doses of blade root between every personal resource operated by a Navarre character in Broceliande except for fleets and military units, as if it were a unique great work. This valuable herb is not only used in a variety of useful potions, it is vital to the treatment of the green lung infection so prevalent amongst Navarre who risk living within a Valorn miasma. In addition, the Broch would become a permanent location for vigilant Imperial citizens to keep an eye on the Valorn and on the entire territory of Broceliande, potentially providing additional warning about any future attempts to rouse the Valorn here by groups such as the heirs of Teruniel or the children of Yor Nagor. It would function like a spy network, creating an option to scout Broceliande on the Scout and Area drop-down, but without the need for continued upkeep from the Senate. The first order of business would be to scout the territory again and get a more up-to-date sense of the state of the Valorn following Yor Nagor and the heirs' attempts to cause it to expand, as well as ensuring that there are no nasty surprises left behind by the Druge in Borsdell. Finally, in the event that the Valorn were driven from Black Bowels, the Broch would be an ideal location to build a fortification to safeguard Broceliande and the eastern approach to Cassanea alike. Limited opportunity. This opportunity is available in the immediate aftermath of the success against the Valorn. As such, if the Senate chooses not to commission this project during the autumn equinox, the opportunity to do so would be lost. The Walls of Greenstead. Along with their Navarre allies, the Dornish nobles of Rucastle presented a proposal to fortify Greenstead as a gathering place for adventurers. The fortification would require 40 white granite, 20 weirwood, 120 crowns, and take 9 months to complete. When complete, the fortification would provide additional benefits, including supporting questing in Broceliande and rewarding Dornish military units committed to fight the Valorn. Borsdell, the northernmost region of Broceliande, is the site of Greenstead, a stone-walled steading built with the support from the Navarre's Dornish neighbours at Rucastle. It is often assaulted, but with Dornish support it is always held. It is a symbol of the strong bond between the people of the two settlements. During the recent attacks by the Valorn, the courageous commitment of the Knights of Dawn ensured that while the settlement was attacked more than once, it was never breached. Serving as a base of operations for Dornish knights-errant and questing knights keen to explore the Barrens, the nobles of Rucastle and their allies are keen to help their Navarre cousins make the place even more appealing as a place from which to seek glory. With that in mind, they have suggested that what Greenstead really needs is a proper Dornish castle, not only to improve protection of the steading, but to also serve as a beacon to adventurers seeking to make a name for themselves. A set of plans have been drawn up, combining traditional Navarre architecture with the unique style of the people of Rucastle. Part Temple of the Way, part fortress, their proposal involves a squat stone keep, a moat of spikes, a killing ground perfect for showering volley after volley of withering arrow fire on any Valorn spawn or orc that dares to threaten the people of Greenstead, and more importantly a grand trophy chamber and feasting hall to celebrate successful hunts into the Valorn-controlled regions. Their proposal would cost 40 white granite and 20 weirwood, with a labour cost of 120 crowns, and have an upkeep of 10 thrones, as with any other fortification. It would take 9 months to complete the fortification of Greenstead, with the enthusiastic assistance of the nobles and yeofolk of Rucastle. Once it was complete, the newly fortified Greenstead would provide 2 additional benefits above and beyond the normal defensive capabilities of a fortification. Firstly, it would create a new opportunity on the independent action drop-down for anyone with a military unit called Broceliande Questing. This action would represent seeking adventure and danger in the depths of the Valorn of Broceliande. A military unit assigned to the action would not only receive the gratitude of the people of Greenstead in the form of herbs, but the approval of the nobles of Rucastle in the form of ingots of metal. They would also be able to recover interesting items from the Valorn area, which could be sold for money. A standard military unit taking this action would expect to receive 3 crowns, 4 random ingots, and 4 random herbs each season, with an upgraded or enchanted military units receiving commensurately more. Secondly, as long as there was any Valorn in Broceliande and the people of Navarre and Dorne remained friendly, any Dornish military unit assigned to military action against the Valorn, whether that were defending the territory against an incursion or seeking to clear the Valorn from a region, would receive an additional 4 random ingots payment. Limited opportunity. This opportunity builds on the mandate originally supported by the Dorne National Assembly to focus aid in Broceliande. If it is not acted on before the start of the winter solstice, it will not be available unless the Dorne Assembly are able to convince their nation that supporting it is a virtuous course of action, and even then the lingering effects of the mandate of Bartimaeus are likely to make encouraging it difficult. The Gardens of Illyri. Highborn and Great Forest Orc herbalist proposed the construction of the Houses of Healing in Illyriel. The houses would require 25 wains of weirwood, 50 crowns, and take 3 months to complete. They would serve as a ministry providing healing potions, and also help to mitigate the effects on armies of fighting in Valorn miasma. The commission is contingent on a statement of principle condemning the use of Druge allies against the Valorn. Both the Highborn and the Great Forest Orcs who supported the Navarre in the defence of their home were primarily based in Illyriel, around Illyri's stead. The steading itself was overrun by the Druge following the fall of Rykos, but eventually recovered by the brave action of the Black Thorns, who dove through Dark Ranging itself with the aid of the Baron's Orcs to ensure the vacated region did not fall to the Valorn. During the recent battle to slow the Valorn, Illyri's stead served as a major base of operations for the southern defenders. Friendships were forged that will endure even though the immediate threat of the Valorn is in decline for the moment. Some of those who came to Illyriel to help their Navarre neighbours, a highborn physic named Simon of Harros, and a great forest orc herbalist named Ulla Redstaff, have presented a proposal to the leaders of the steading. They believe that while force of arms is important in the fight against the Valorn, or to defend the homes of the Navarre in Broceliande, not only weapons but healing herbs will be in great demand. The Navarre have many herbs of their own, but not every Navarre knows how to use them to heal their fellows. With that in mind, they propose that their people, highborn healers and great forest apothecaries, might work with their Navarre opposite numbers to provide the people of Broceliande with the potions that will help them in their quest to destroy the Valorn. In addition to these benefits, the houses of healing would also serve as a hospital. The Navarre have centuries of experience dealing with the patients exposed to the malice of the Valorn, and from the safety of Illyri's stead, they could put their skills to work offering support and sanctuary to those suffering from otherwise untreatable wounds. This would reduce the threat to armies fighting within the Valorn miasma. Rather than doubling the number of casualties taken, the influence of the miasma would increase then by 3/4. The Houses of Healing would also provide an opportunity for the Navarre to share their knowledge of dealing with the Valorn with other healers, especially the physics of Highguard and the Great Forest, in thanks for their aid both here and during the recent Valorn encroachment. The Houses would provide a hospital, as well as a place for those wishing to support the Navarre of Broceliande to deliver supplies. They would require a Senate motion, or the use of an Imperial wayleave, require 25 wains of weirwood, 50 crowns in labour costs, and 3 months to complete. At the end of that time, it would create an Imperial title, perhaps the Hand of Illyri, who would oversee the steading and work with highborn and Great Forest orc herbalists to provide healing potions and other supplies as long as relations between the three people remain cordial. Total money spent: 7 crowns. Highborn potions, 2 sovereign specific, 1 elixir vitae. 17 crowns. 4 sovereign specific, 2 elixir vitae. 30 crowns. 6 sovereign specific, 3 elixir vitae. Total money spent to Great Forest orc potions: 7 crowns. 1 each of anodyne analgexis, blood harrow filter, feverfail elixir, and Ossian solution. 17 crowns. 2 each of the above. 30 crowns. 3 each of the above. 46 crowns. 4 each of the above. However, there is one fly in the ointment. These proposals were first mooted before the news that the Navarre had received the aid of the Druge in northern Broceliande, reaching those fighting in Illyriel. Simon of Harros lost his entire family to the Druge in the fall of Rykos, and Ulla Redstaff likewise suffered greatly when her people were forced to flee the Barons. They are not leaping to conclusions, but they have made their concerns apparent. Before they will offer their aid and encourage other healers and apothecaries to contribute their time and skill to the defenders of Broceliande, they ask that the Navarre National Assembly make a clearly worded statement of principle denouncing the decision to accept the aid of the Druge and calling for those involved to be investigated and punished by the Synod. Actions have consequences. Those who made allies of the Druge must face the repercussions for their actions. We urge those responsible for securing this alliance to deliver themselves for judgment by the Synod, and we ask the Conclave to condemn the alliance between the Eternal Arhalogen and the Orcs of the Malum. Statement of principle, suggested wording, Navarre National Assembly. If such a statement is raised, then Simon and Ulla will raise support among their fellows to help support the proposed Houses of Healing. If not, they will withdraw their offer, and the Houses of Healing will provide neither potions nor benefits when fighting the Valorn. Limited opportunity. The statement of principle must be raised during the autumn equinox, or else Simon and Ulla will withdraw their support and the commission will not be available. The Houses of Healing would need to be commissioned by the end of the winter solstice. Other concerns. Broceliande is under the effects of Wither the Seed. You can learn more about this in another Winds of Fortune. There is a wider threat to the Navarre nation, which you can learn about in another Winds of Fortune. While Broceliande is relatively peaceful, this is a busy season for the Navarre and for the Imperial citizens opposed to the Valorn. Additional events of note are covered in 2 other Winds of Fortune. One concerns the effect of a potent winter magic curse with tragic long-term effects that hangs over Broceliande and Liathhaven. The other concerns a wider threat to the entire Navarre nation. Both can be found in other Winds of Fortune.